Last Wednesday, President Trump faced Republican senators on the Hill, 4 of whom, including Louisiana's Bill Cassidy, had just voted with Democrats against his launching the war without congressional approval. Following that heated meeting, Cassidy did receive a private White House Situation Room briefing with Vice President Vance and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Cassidy then voted in support of the president's war on a second measure. And after that, in our interview, Cassidy told CBS that he spoke to the president and that the conversation was, quote, positive and looking to build a working relationship. Here's what Cassidy told us about that meeting.
The president was berating the 4 people that voted for the War Powers Act. Frankly, I'm not there to be berated. And the president wasn't invited to dish out verbal abuse.
But that's what he did.
I raised my hand. I said, Mr. President, do you just want, is that a rhetorical question that you're asking, why do we vote for it? Or are you really interested? He goes, I'm really interested. I stood up and I said, this is why. And I listed those objectives that I did not see being achieved and how the kind of endpoint of the war kept stretching out longer and longer. He began to speak over me. Unfortunately, I raised my volume to match his, and we spoke to each other like that. Or shall we say, spoke at each other, not to each other. Now, I shouldn't have lost my temper. Nor should he. But, you know, my wife will tell you, every now and then my Irish temper gets the best of me. But point being, I needed to know. I need to know to serve my people in my state and my country. As it turns out, I got a briefing afterwards. In one sense, I actually accomplished the mission of what I needed to do.
But you had also said the American people need that information. So the American people aren't getting those public hearings and briefings.
When I asked about that in my briefing, they said right now the negotiations are delicate. And they could collapse if they're not nursed along in the appropriate way. I can accept that. Sometimes you have to have some space for people to come to an accommodation. That's the reason they said for their kind of lack of being forthcoming. I can accept that. Not
only did you say this is the worst foreign policy blunder on record, Reagan be rolling in his grave, you said America lost the credible threat of force, which is another way of saying that President Trump's threats to return to bombing are empty threats.
I don't know if they're empty threats, because you can certainly return to bombing. But the fact is that a medium-sized power at this point is perceived to have fought a superpower to a draw, requiring some measure of accommodation of we, the superpower. And we spent $29 billion and we have 13 Americans dead. We hope to get back to status quo ante. I will say, in the briefing last night, they would make the argument that we've actually made progress. If that's the case, we should all be thankful.
Would you call for a vote for some kind of congressional oversight if an actual agreement is reached?
I think this would amount to a treaty. Congress has a... It
does not?
I'm saying it would.
It would.
And so, I mean, I don't know the technical definition of a treaty. Seems like a treaty to me. And so if it is, then Congress should be able to weigh in.
Do you have that kind of commitment that when things aren't so delicate, Congress actually will be read in and perhaps put to a vote under INARA?
I think I've shown, at least on my level, that I'm willing to make tough votes in order to get that briefing that I feel I need to have the truth to make a decision that's good for my country. So we didn't talk about that last night, but I think that's a fair statement.
Will anyone else hold the president accountable once Cornyn's gone and Tillis is gone and you're gone?
The simple answer will be yes. The men and women who serve in Congress, by and large, love our country. I mean, they all love our country deeply. And by and large, they will do what is required. Now, when you're running for office, you have to be aware of what your voters are interested in. You have to talk about what your voters are interested in if you want to get reelected. But in the Senate, at least, there's that space of 4 years prior to that. And I think you see every period there's senators that step up and say, we need something different. We need more. The Senate is a separate body, separate from the presidency. I think we're seeing that.
Do you think the president understands that?
I don't know if the president does. Sometimes he acts as if Congress is merely an appendage. And frankly, sometimes Congress acts like it's an appendage. But that said, I think you got the message yesterday. Congress wants to be read in. And Congress has our rules and procedures that our founding fathers set up. And they set it up precisely so that there would not be too powerful of an institution of a presidency. designed to reflect all of the American people, not just the will of one person.
That's being tested right now.
I suppose it's being tested, but hopefully we pass the test.
Well, the president seems to have some changing priorities himself when it comes to what he's asking you all to deliver on. He canceled that event on the bipartisan housing bill, which had strong support from both sides of the aisle. It was aimed at least at affordability. He seemed to sabotage his own nominee to run the intelligence community, Jay Clayton. He told him, don't show up for the hearing that Senate Republicans had scheduled. And he's been talking about the ballroom legislation like the SAVE Act, which Leader Thom has said there are not the votes for it. What do you think his priorities are right now?
Margaret, you're asking me to get inside the president's brain. I cannot get inside the president's brain.
You had lunch with him yesterday.
I did, but it wasn't really, sipping tea with a pinky finger out and saying, hey, how do you feel about life? But clearly he wants the SAVE Act passed. So you can say that is a priority. What I think should be the priority is how do you make life more affordable for the American people? And so that's why I'm asking the president regularly, let's work on affordability of health care. The president has made a strong push to make health care more affordable. I want to make health care more affordable. So I can't tell you what his priorities are beyond the SAVE Act. I can tell you what I think they should be, and how do we make life more affordable for the average American?
The SAVE Act, he wants to put in place more restrictions around federal elections, but it's already federal law that non-citizens can't vote.
Yeah, but he's
races.
asking is that people have to show an ID.
Yeah.
And showing an ID, I think, is a reasonable thing. We've done it in Louisiana. There's been no disenfranchisement at all. But we had a reputation for corrupt elections, and now everybody acknowledges our elections are pretty straightforward.
But you agree with Leader Thom, there just aren't the votes.
They're not the votes.
You have also made clear you think that the Director of National Intelligence, Bill Pulte, he's in the position in an acting role presently, that he's not qualified. He has no national security experience. But he's in the job, and he can stay there for 210 days without Congress having a say here. I mean, is Congress powerless to put a check?
Once under the rules, and we live by the rules, the president can make an interim appointment, and indeed he can stay there. Now, there may be other things we could do that the parliamentarian or someone can tell us. I'm not familiar with those. My objection to Bill is that he used personal information to target a political enemy of the president.
At the Federal Housing Administration.
At the Federal Housing Administration, using personal data. Now, if we have an inalienable right, I have, you have, the woman targeted has an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'm a conservative. You should not be using the force of government to crash upon somebody just because the person in charge does not like them or finds them inconvenient. The fact that Bill did that is disqualifying for someone to be the Director of National Intelligence. We should be about all people having access to that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, not saying we're going to bring, boom, DOJ down on you because you have the nerve to disagree. And so that's the standard I hold him to, and as best I can tell, he does not meet that standard.
Are there any checks on the abuses that you say Pulte has carried out in his current position at federal housing? You
can go to court. So we have three branches, and one is the court. Secondly, Democrats have said they will not approve FISA until we do something about that DNI director. And the president, of course, should be concerned about FISA.
Is he?
Again, you're asking me to get inside the president's head. But my point being that the president, as a responsible agent, as the responsible servant of the American people, should be concerned about making sure that we don't have a cyber attack or that we don't have a terrorist cell coming into our nation. And so the Democrats are, if you will, holding that hostage. I'm not saying I agree with it because I think we need FISA reauthorized, but point being, they're all points of leverage.
But in the meantime, there's a standoff.
There's a little bit of a standoff, and that's
FISA's authority has expired.
Yes, my understanding is that it's continuing to be implemented, but nonetheless, there is a standoff.
You were one of 7 Republicans who voted to convict President Trump for his actions on January 6th of 2021. After January, there'll be only 1 or 2 senators who remain here, who took the stand you did. You've been fighting his attempts to create this $1.8 billion fund, compensation for those who who felt they were wrongly prosecuted under the Biden administration, perhaps including some of these people who attacked the building we are sitting in right now. Do you trust that the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, that he won't move forward with the fund?
I prefer to say I voted to uphold the Constitution and my oath of office, which is to protect the Constitution against all enemies, domestic and foreign. So let me just frame what my vote was that day.
Understood.
You're asking about Attorney General Blanche. Right now, I am actively considering my vote for him. So I will reserve judgment. He has assured Congress that he will not use the weaponization fund. I will note that he's not given the same guarantee to the 7th District Court, if I have that right, down in Virginia, which has asked for a guarantee. He says, well, we don't think they have jurisdiction. But it doesn't seem hard to just write a letter saying we're not going to do it. But nonetheless, he has said that he is not going to. The president has sent conflicting signals. That's something that has to be sorted out before the vote.
Before you decide your vote, you actually wrote a memo because the DOJ had said this fund was going to be created. They also said the U.S. is forever barred from prosecuting any claims against President Trump, his family, his businesses, and all related or affiliated individuals. Do you still object to that? Do you need Blanche to say something more clearly on that point?
I absolutely object to that, and I don't think that agreement should hold the force of law. Absolving somebody of any crime which they or their family may have objected to, may have committed, not just in terms of IRS audits, but like anything, seems a little bit far afield from the self-sacrifice that our founding fathers embraced. It seems more, I'm above everybody else, and I should be held to a different standard. Leaders should be held to a higher standard, not a different standard. They should be more accountable. They should be pledging their life, their liberty, their sacred honor. I should, as a senator. Frankly, I think all Americans should, whatever their role. But point being, I would object to anything that goes against the kind of spirit of that. And making one person above the law is wrong.
We're 4 months until midterms. You got 6 months left. Is healthcare your top priority? I've
got so many things, because I'm going to run through the tape. But right now we're working on Social Security. Social Security is insolvent, going insolvent. And when that happens, there'll be a cut of 22 to 25% in someone's benefits if we follow the current law. I've been working on a plan for about 6 years. I am still working on that plan, and I want to bring it to completion. How do you make healthcare more affordable? Second thing, in our HELP committee, of which I'm the chairman, we're working on price transparency. Wouldn't it be great if a mom, daughter has an earache, could say, hey Siri, where is the most affordable urgent care center near me? Oh, this one's $50 and that one's $500. And so she goes to the one that's $50. Let's give her the tool of price transparency so that she can make the best decision for her family's health, but also for her pocketbook.
When you were on the Senate floor recently, you were banging your hands down, you were yelling that the president needs to get engaged.
Mr. President, too many people have this debt, $10,000 on their credit card related to paying in part for things such as medical expenses, and they are going down. That is something that we, Mr. President, you, the President, and we as Congress must engage upon.
Your party controls the White House. Your party controls the Capitol. Why haven't they done anything to deal with what you are describing as really a healthcare crisis in terms of affordability?
If you fully elaborate on what I said, Margaret, it's that we as Republicans and Democrats have to come together.
Yes.
You need 60 votes to get something done. But practically, you've got to be unified as a country.
Well, first you got to try.
You got to try.
The party hasn't put forward a plan.
I'm not going to blame that on the president. Congress has a role, and the president needs to collaborate, but Congress has a role. And by the way, that's what I'm attempting to do. And so everything's not Donald Trump's fault. But I do say that if the president gets engaged, it gives a real push. The plan I propose takes principles that the president has embraced and makes them and kind of puts them into practice, if you will.
Giving cash to
what's that?
Giving cash to individuals rather than directly to insurance companies. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. If you take somebody, a family owner, getting insurance through their employer, and if you give them, for a family of 4, up to $2,000 money in their pocket to pay that out of pocket, it actually benefits the family immediately. you can do that and we can have that set up in a relatively short period of time, that would help that family.
You have any pledge from leadership to move that forward?
No, but partly you just got to make people aware of it, and partly the American people have to speak to our leadership.
And that's what November's about?
That's what November's about.